Here's my thought. I think probably what happens is that lower ranked players are a little too silly or not smart enough to realize that they maintain perk advantage if they counter swap at the start of an escort flip-flop, or later in the game you can counter swap as much as you like and you maintain full perk charge. I don't think they understand the system, so they're scared to swap, would be my expectation. Because we do know that low and mid-rank players do swap more outside of the perk system. No, we're going to look at the dev EMA about the perks as I drink my antioxidant juice. It's actually pretty good. Okay. No shot. R/competitive Overwatch. Bless the maker. Thank goodness. Check this out, guys. Here, we'll move all this stuff out of the way. Check this out. Some guy did a summation. One of their mods did a summation of all the answers. What an MVP. Thank goodness. Okay. Which perks have the highest impact in hero performance? Will perks have a higher priority in terms of balance than base hero perks? Or will we see a combination of both going forward? Alec Dawson, lead gameplay designer, says some of the winners so far have been Ana, Bastion, Pharah, Ramantra, and Winston. No surprise. The self-nano perk is really good. I mean, a lot of these have not only opened up playstyle options like Bastion and Pharah, but a lot of them are just really freaking strong. Like the Ana self-nano, Winston, the self-heal and bubble, the primal buff as well. These are pretty big buffs. When it comes to individual perks, Ramatra's Vengeful Vortex, let me make sure that we have all the perk names pulled up here so that we're not like... would Vengeful Vortex be the heal on Vortex? Oh, no, it's the detonation. Now, I'm curious why that one is so strong. Is it the detonation of it? It's probably the detonation unless the anti-air of it. The 50 damage is probably what makes it so strong. Interesting. Okay, good to know. Zarya's Energy Lance. Now, that's the cleave one. That one's probably really strong in lower ranks because people in lower ranks tend to clump up more, which means it's really potent. And Soldier 76 agility training have all been quite impactful. Makes sense. It's kind of ironic or interesting because Energy Lance is not a good perk in higher ranks. At least it's not, to my understanding on paper, it shouldn't be a good perk with how people probably position. But yeah. All right. We mostly plan on balancing perks in order to make them feel more impactful. There will still be some core kit tuning alongside that, but there's still a meaningful amount of change we want to inject in the system throughout the next few patches. Tuning to perks and actual perk swaps, hoping for Summon 16, are included in that. Okay, good stuff. Triscan, a class can be really fun when the stars align. Anything you can share about what you plan to do with this mode in the future? I was really looking forward to seeing the old 2CB maps reworked. Oh, and speaking of old maps, any hopes for Gothenburg to get a second life one day? Like you, I also believe Clash is awesome when it all comes together. We actually spent a good amount of time on Clash's scoring before we made the decision to pull it from competitive. Even with scoring changes, we believe the mode needs some fundamental geo changes to point A and E to perform better as a competitive mode. Cool. Currently, we are experimenting with building another Clash map from the ground up with a different approach to the layout to see if that solves some of the core issues the mode has. That is all very early, but hopefully some significant geo changes along with scoring changes can get Clash to a great spot. Great, because I think it needs both. Good stuff. And geo changes is in the structure of the maps, like how the maps are designed and not just the point system. Okay. Kudos to the dev team for trying something so different. For me, it seems to be a bit hit already, and I can't wait to get my hands on it on Stadium. Chicken or egg question. Did Junkenstein's Revenge success serve as the spark for building a new game mode with talents more permanently into the game? I highly doubt so. That was probably in development way sooner than that. What was the thinking behind limiting perks down to just 2x2 choices? And this is something you think you could change in the future? Actually, neither. The true impetus for this was our need for a game system layer to introduce more changes into the core game. Having some talents to pull away from was nice, but have a large majority of the perks were built for the perk system specifically. The team had gotten really great expanding kits, so there's plenty of good experience for us to bring good learnings into building perks. Junken's Lab gave us more signal for Stadium and how we could expand the balance of Overwatch match while still making it feel like Overwatch. We played with a number of different iterations, and again, we're talking about how many perks. Originally, we had 3 levels, but there was no choice. Didn't feel very different. Some iterations later, we gave players their minor perks passively, but you had a choice between 2 major perks later on in the game. We really liked the choice that gave, so we decided to bring it on earlier with choice at the minor perk level. We thought this is the right amount of change to introduce initially. We were changing some of the fundamentals of how Overwatch worked, and we're trying to measure how much we could really disrupt that. Maybe we could have gone even further, but I think we're in a good place right now. And we'll see how we go from there. Apostle, how does the team decide who gets the fun perks and who gets the new ability perks and who just gets number buffs? Are the number buffs just placeholders with plans to get more extreme in the future to match the other heroes? The goal overall is to make the fun perks for every character. That can be more difficult in certain characters, though, as boosting certain elements of their kits can cause issues. Currently, the number buff perks are some of the perks we like the least and plan on changing a handful of these over time. We talked about this on stream. This initial launch has given us plenty on the signal of which perk combinations players find compelling and which ones they don't. I think it'll be important for us to stay true to the values for minor and major perks. Your minor perks are supposed to be lighter, nice little upgrades. Your major perks are supposed to be transformative. We have some work to hit that goal for all the heroes. Okay. Rob, do you view perks as a way to limit the counterpicking and power spikes of certain characters? If you do think they have shown the early signs of achieving that, or if so, and what adjustments would you make going forward? We did want to add more friction to counter swapping, and we've seen that drop quite a bit since Season 15's launch. I do expect this to change as people get more comfortable. This is Spilo talking. I do expect people to change this more as they experiment more and get more comfortable with the perk system. So I think counter swapping initially is going to be drastically down, but it will probably creep in a little bit more as people get more comfortable with the perk system. It'll be some time before the players settle on how much less they want to counter swap, but in ranked role queue, we've seen players swap about 25% less often, and even more so at the higher ranks. Players swap much more in ranks below Masters. So there's your funny fact. I actually want to do a video about the toxicity of Platinum, but it's just funny that all the mid and lower ranks swap a lot more. For power spikes, the goal of the perk system isn't to limit power spikes. We actually introduce more power spikes and hopefully add more texture to individual hero moment-to-moment gameplay. We think a number of our heroes need bigger moments than they had previously. Going forward, we are looking for raising some of the less impactful perks and making sure you feel there's a real choice between your minors and majors. We have a lot of opportunity to make the choice more interesting by cutting out some of the perks players aren't gravitating towards. Things like Roadhog's increased Pigpen throw distance. Sure, I would love to see some more elaboration on how... I mean, I've already made a video about where I talked about how if perks aren't as well designed and just increase spikes of value, then you incentivize counter swapping in many situations. I think a good example of that is like Brigitte's armor pack just makes it really hard to play dive tank sitter, even more so than below. Edog, I don't know. I don't know what perk change you're talking about yet. We're just started reading through this. In the spotlight, Alec mentioned a refresh of the perks in the middle of the year. Does that mean 4 new perks for everyone? Saw someone mention Aaron said something along those lines. Or is it more like the perks will get tweaked? Okay. The goal there would be that every hero gets at least 1 new perk to play with. Still scoping out what that refresh would look like for Season 18, but somewhere around 25 to 50% of the perks changing, some being completely new and some receiving significant tuning. If we do have perks that players really love, we don't want to immediately remove those, and the refresh would be looking at perks that are more middling in interest. We'd also like to evaluate how the perk system functions overall at that point too. This could be early changes to catch-up mechanics, gain rates, even a starting level choice. These are fairly early discussions. How the season will go will give us a good insight into where to take the perks next. Oh, maybe you're right, Chad. Hang on, let me see here. We've seen players swap about 25% less and more so at the highest ranks. Yes, so Masters players swap much more than the ranks below that. Okay, yeah, there you go. Interesting. Because in Plat, we know, according to Gavin, that players counter swap a lot more. But this was before perks. Maybe after perks. Here's my thought. Okay, here's my thought. I think probably what happens is that lower ranked players are a little too silly or not smart enough to realize that they maintain perk advantage if they counter swap at the start of an escort flip-flop, or later in the game you can counter swap as much as you like and you maintain full perk charge. I don't think they understand the system, so they're scared to swap, would be my expectation. Because we do know that low and mid-rank players do swap more outside of the perk system. So that's my guess. Pretty sure it's not saying that more Masters players are swapping. Okay, then we don't know what it's saying. It's a mystery. It doesn't matter that much, to be honest with you. It doesn't matter that much. Okay, yeah, so I'm honestly not too sure. What were some interesting perks that the team scrapped along the way? Variety of movement perks for heroes that don't have much mobility. We want to see if we could do a movement perk for Torb. I think it only lasted a playtest or 2, but Torbjorn could launch himself off his turret by double jumping on it. Maybe we'll come back someday. Are there any ideas to make mystery heroes modes less stomping with new perks? We have a fix coming for this soon. You will get 2 random perks each time you spawn. Okay. What's the overall design goals for each perk? For some heroes, perks seem to be covering weaknesses, as far as drift thrusters or Reaper's dire triggers, while other perks seem to allow players more skill expression, and some perks are just odd or unfitting, like Sommer's White Hat or Moira's Contamination. Is there a set philosophy for perks that can be shared with the community? Perks are mostly about creating new things for your heroes to do, increasing situational viability, and giving you more agency of your in-match experience. For the goal of increasing the amount of situations a hero can be viable, they can come through via shoring up weaknesses against certain heroes that can also come through by adding mobility, so that certain heroes can be played in more maps. That goal led to perks like Junk's Frag, Cannon, Sigma's Levitation, and more. For perks like Sommer's White Hat, that is fulfilling a particular hero fantasy that many players want to lean into, and we think that's an interesting opportunity for the perk system creates. Over time, we'll see how players respond to the many other ones. Just some of the more off-the-wall ones. Launch Tor one. Are you Megatron, the flex support? Yeah, Megan, you're Megatron. Megan's actually a top 500 Widow one trick. That's true. Well, the new heroes since Overwatch 2's release beginning dance emotes. Kenny goes, I don't know when everyone's dance emotes are coming in, but I confirm that Ramontra's up next and soon. And for context, Kenny is the senior game producer, so, okay. Our perks going to start rotating next season, or are going to wait and let the current batch simmer for a bit? Bouncing off of that, if you're looking for specific underperforming, less interesting perks now, which ones are on the potential chopping block? Do you have any desire to ever add another level? Kenny says, we're going to start rotating in some new perks in Season 16. Before we get there, we've got a bunch of balance changes and tweaks coming in Season 15 mid-cycle patch. And there are good things coming for some underperforming perks. Things like Hog Toss now increasing the damage of Pigpen. Oh, wow. Juno's double jump reset perk is also going to increase the duration of Glide Boost. Oh, wow. On the other end of the spectrum, Bash and Self-Repair resource meter is coming back. Good. We did a ton of iteration on how many level perks should come up with. There are versions with 2 levels up to, I think, 4. And even more if you eventually had all minor and major perks. 3 levels has been the sweet spot for a while, but that's not to say that the system can't evolve. Okay, yeah. And yeah, you know, honestly, fair warning here, like, chilling out here. Like, from the games that I have played, I don't know, maybe chat can correct me on this one, especially PvP games, I don't feel like you get this much of accessibility with developers, man. I mean, combining this with everything else we've been had. Okay. Was pre-selecting perks, perk presets ever considered? We did discuss the idea of pre-selecting perks in the original design, even had an interface for them as a loadout in the hero gallery, but once we started playtesting the abilities themselves, there was a lot of situations where we'd want to go with a different perk based on the situation at hand. Being locked into a choice made prior to really being 100% on what you want to choose felt like a worse option than always giving yourself options. This is not to say this couldn't change as people get used to the choices and so on. Cryptographer. What is a primary weapon archetype you either want to fix or haven't, or you either want to fit in that you haven't yet, or a thing is at the very least underexplored? I think this is referencing the fact that Freya has like the crossbow, right? That we haven't seen before. The one weapon that always comes under what's next this session is the flamethrower. We'd love to get one in, but it's got to be epic. Cool. That's a very dangerous one. Do we have any stats on which perk selections are the most one-sided? One perk is picked over the other 90% of the time. Scott says, we do have stats that show perk selection rates per hero. I'd say it's variable depending on the hero and the rank that you're being selected. In general, when a perk has an incredibly high pick rate, it's due to the other option not being enticing. So it's more about one being bad and less to that one being good. For example, Roadhog's Minor Hog Toss isn't picked very often compared to Scrap Hook. Other options like Ramattra's Void Surge is a cool perk to play with that increases the hero's damage, so it's much preferred to the simpler defensive option, Prolonged Barrier. Overall, the perk selection rates that are one-sided are the ones you would expect, and we're using those stats and feedbacks to identify which perks need to be balanced or changed in the future patch. So, pretty much what you expect. Brutal Rogue. Are there any perks that you have seen a lot of praise for that you think you could potentially incorporate into the hero's base kit? There aren't any current plans to implement specific perks into heroes kits, but there are perks that have helped heroes in ways that could lead to changes in the future. I think the biggest example is Bastion. The perks have helped fill some of the holes in their kit. For example, Armored Artillery, Smart Bomb, Self-Repair. These perks have made the hero both better overall, but much more fun to play as well. This was some of the major goal perks they're trying to accomplish, but I could see us taking some perks and just putting in the kit as well. This is for Custa. What was the thought process behind giving on headshots despite the fact that you cannot hit crits? Good thing for those who can't hit headshots like me, we have double nano boost. And more seriously, how many shoeys have you done while on campus? And how many team members have you convinced to join you? Not enough, so 0. Which perks too good are you monitoring the most? Do you plan on fully replacing perks every 6 months to 12 months, or rather keep the ones that are working, adjust the ones that are almost there, and swing the fences, replacing the rest? There are obviously some on the radar that we're keeping an eye on. Obviously, Tracer's major perk Flashback was the one that we were aware of and looking to see how impactful this perk can be. Mobility perks like Zarya's minor jump ups. This gives a lot of vertical mobility and is very strong in some maps, but its pick rate varies dramatically depending on the rank. There's a list of perks that have been underperforming both in win and pick rate that we're actively looking at. The goal is to make every set of minor and major perks feel like there's a choice to be made depending on your playstyle, the map, or how the match is going. Okay. I still haven't played it. Is it good or bad? It's fun. Hi, this question is for Custa. How are you so smart? What are the developers' favorite perks? I personally had the most fun with Craftsman. If you haven't tried chasing or pinning Reinhardt to give him some armor, it's a lot of fun. That's the Torb heal one. Other notable missions would be Pharah's Concussive Implosion or Zarya's Jump Ups. Howdy, when asked how the team decides whether to strictly buff an ability versus to give it a drawback. Sombra's lockout duration, but it's cost benefit. Mercy's flash heal, cost benefit with res. But when we see Tracer get all her blinks back, it just feels like a massive boost. When first ideating on perks, the team included more perks that has strong benefit but a drawback. If we found that some situations it could feel worse to play a perk even if the benefit was strong. This can be seen with Sombra's major stack overflow. We wanted to give players an option to be able to increase the lockout duration and so on. But we've received a lot of feedback this perk doesn't feel good to use or play against. So we're planning on making a balance change to help and possibly replace in the future. We want to avoid situations like that in the future. And in the instance we do have a perk that has a drawback, but yeah. Basically the idea is like, some perks go in the wrong direction, it feels like. Where like, they sharpen the edges of an ability. Which is fine if it's like, oh, it's just a situational choice. Yeah, but it's not fun. You know, it's not fun for the Sombra. It's frustrating as a Sombra. And then you get hacked and you just want to free. It's over. It's like Overwatch 1 hack all over again. You know? So those are probably the wrong direction with perks in that aspect. Reinforce. What are the upper limitations for perks that relate to hero design and hero identity? I think Mercy is a good example of a hero that does not have the same level of skill expression. Would there be a world where Mercy would receive a perk that would elevate her skill expression? And do you view perks as seasonal cycles? Or do you think this is maybe something that change up the game, help some heroes that can still be played that are not conventionally fitting into certain compositions? For the first round of perks, you're focused on adding perks that enhance or change the way that you play heroes. In the future, we could implement more transformative perks that would add skill expression. I wouldn't say that perks have seasonal themes in which they'll be designed to play a certain way for a season, but we've learned a lot about what perks are the most interesting and most fun, so we'll see. Basically. Now that the perks are in the player's hands, what is your approach going to be moving forward when it comes to balancing and iterating them? I feel like we've already said this stuff though. In regards to Stadium, let's see if we have any new stuff. We're gonna focus on the stuff that hasn't been touched on before. Will changing perks mid-game ever be an option? We want it to feel like you're making meaningful choice whenever you select your perk, and when allies and enemies select your perk, you understand what to expect. We understand that there is an issue with people accidentally selecting a perk and being unable to change it. This is something they're keeping an eye on. I won't say that will never be an option to swap your hero perks in the future, but there are currently no plans to add changing perks mid-game. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, pretty insightful. I don't think there's... If you watch my sum up of the Spotlight and my interview with Alec, which I referenced, then there isn't really anything new there. So, outside of the fact of the timing of things, right? So, mid-season battle adjustments, perk balance adjustments, not battle. And then season 16, we might see some adjustments of perks. So, yeah, he's a hero designer.